Hello everyone and welcome to the video companion for the Talking Time Let's Play of Heavensward Final Fantasy XIV. I'm McDowell and today we're tackling the level 55 story dungeon in Nidhogg's lair, the Aery. Enlisting the aid of Cid, Biggs, and Wedge, Satson, Suisse, and Festinian had broken through the wind ether storms that Nidhogg conjured to guard his lair, in a last-ditch effort to end the Dragon Song War by killing Nidhogg. Notice as part of that opening cutscene, Estanian and Satson Suisse are separated, with Estanian being forced to face the dragon by himself, while Satson Suisse has to forge her own route to his lair. As far as the gameplay of this dungeon goes, there isn't a whole lot to write home about, though there is a fairly large pull you can attempt between the first and second boss, but I'll point that out in a moment. So instead, for a bit, I want to talk about this place and how it fits into the history of the world. My lore sources informed me that this place was once the lair of Nidhogg's mate, Ratatoskr, that the civilization of Elezen that preceded present-day Ishgard lived here together with those dragons. Of course, that all fell apart when the Elezen betrayed the dragons and slew Ratatoskr. All through the Turning Mists region at the top of Som All, I pointed out before that the architecture is almost exactly like the architecture in Ishgard, and the surrounding holdings of Kurthus. Get some more of that here in the Aery, which supports that as well. The arena for the first boss in this region is Akh-Fa-Lave. Given all the Akh that we've seen up to this point, between Akh-Morn and Akh-Afa Amphitheater, it is safe to assume at this point that Akh translates to circle, but it can also be translated as fate. Fall translates as fall or drop, and Li translates as light, so possibly circle of falling light. Light that falls, or lightning. Which makes a lot of sense, as this first boss, Rangda, has a lot of lightning-based attacks. I'll be including a link to the Dragonspeak dictionary that was posted in the official FF14 forums by one of the developers in the description below, as well as the Let's Play thread. For Rangda herself, the tanks will want to keep pointed away from the rest of the party, as she's got a frontal cone attack. Everyone will want to stay close to her because she will cast electric as check fields that hit the entire room after the area closer around it. This is what we refer to by experienced players as a donut, where the safe spot is close to the target, or possibly a player marked the whole of the donut, so to speak. Ionospheric charge causes a couple things to happen. First is a batch of targeted AoE bolts, and one player will get marked as prey, attaching a lightning feather to them. The player marked needs to move to near one of the blackened statues nearby to slip the prey and avoid massive damage and paralysis. The last mean trick will cause knockback, and then she'll immediately use electric cathexis. Lightning blasts, meaning you'll need to get back to her as quickly as possible. back a little bit to the first few pulls, we saw an enemy named Gar. Dran is the dragon-speak word for the dragons themselves. Sorn translates to army or soldier, and Gar translates to anger or hatred. Passing through these caverns beyond the Aery interior, you'll come across a dragon that will strafe the pathways of fire breath. You can pause to avoid the damage when you see it swoop down. Like so. I didn't avoid it. Through here are a few Nidhogg broodlings and some sleeping dragons. You can avoid combat with the sleeping dragons by staying away from them and pulling the broodlings away, because when the broodlings die, they use a skill called Final Yip, which will awaken the sleeping dragons nearby. There's an enemy through here named Ned Sorngar, and Ned translates to leader. After this cavern with a few more broodlings, we approach the area for the second boss, named Ten Or, which translated literally as corruption or poison root center. Or more properly, maybe the center of corruption or root of poison. That name is very appropriate to the mini-boss, Gascutus. Again, keep him facing away from the party and minimize damage from his freckled fleet rats. He will inflict disease to random party members, and this will need to be estimated. Throughout the fight, you'll place orbs of poison on the player's position, and gains a stacking damage up for each orb on the ground. At the same time, a mustard gas enemy will come out and devour those poison orbs. Players will need to manage the number of orbs the mustard gas eats to keep Gascutus' damage down while keeping the mustard gas, killing the mustard gas before it eats 4 orbs. If it does that, detonate, dealing a lot of damage and poison to everyone. In this area is another group of trash enemies, and has one enemy that needs special mention, the Dire Sword. He has unmarked AoE attacks, but are still telegraphed. He will lift an arm in preparation for a frontal cleaving cone attack. He holds his hands together in front of him, with a circular AoE on it. Approaching the apex of the Aery, the only other thing of note are the names of these two areas. First is Aaron's Score, possibly translating as Man's Punishment. Finally, Nidhogg on. I'm not entirely sure on what the on part actually means, but it's clearly Nidhogg's lair. We find Estinian already here, having done battle with the Great Worm thus far. As he says here, your job will be to keep Nidhogg occupied while he prepares to use his own eye against him to neutralize his power. So nobody should be near him while he does his thing. He's going to take a lot of damage. Healers should keep an eye on his health. Be ready to heal him if he starts to get wounded. Now for Nidhogg's attack pattern. The Scarlet Whisper is a colorful AoE attack that tanks by naturally well experienced and pointing and making the rest of the party. The Scarlet Price has Nidhogg turn to another player and put a fireball on their location. After placing a few of these, Nidhogg will warm, and the orbs will track after random players, firing the line AoE and damaging anyone who happens to be standing in their way. Another meme tag is called Single Price. Will shackle a party member, lifting them up in the air. This creates an ad that needs to be destroyed before it finishes casting its attack, or it will kill the shackled player. The tank should stay put though, he will still be breathing fire in front of him, and you don't want the party eating that damage. Once you get Nidhogg down to about 30%, he'll leap off tiring in this game and will prepare to cast a party-wide death attack. At this point, some of Nidhogg's brood will swoop into Aery, especially Estinian. Estinian can't move as he's drawing up the power of Nidhogg's eye to create a barrier to defend you against Nidhogg's ultimate attack. Kill the dragons as they spawn. They can be tanked partially, but you can't grab them quick enough to prevent all of the damage to Estinian. The last dragon, Osk, started to summon a damaging area-wide attack called Rhyme Reef, and tanks should save their stun for that, because it'll make the dragon a lot easier to take down. Estinian won't take nearly as much damage as he could. Once Estinian has the barrier ready, get inside to be protected from Nidhogg's massacre. Once he comes back, he will repeat his basic attack cycle of Scarlet Whisper Cones and Scarlet Price Firelings, launching them with roars. Of course, don't forget about the Sable Prize and its instant death attack. The battle will end when Nidhogg falls to 5% health. The cutscene that follows after we get out of here, spoiler alert, resulting in Midhogg's demise. The Dragon Song War is over! Pretty early for an expansion touted to carry the player to level 60, no? Well, that's gonna do it for today. Thank you very much for watching. The link to the full Let's Play is in the description below, and remember, a smile better suits a hero. Oh, and check out this sweet new sword Satsensweet's just got.